Hi there, my name is Raven, and today I am going to talk about the 5 things you can do to hedge your bets against the incoming TikTok ban. So, why are we talking about the TikTok ban? TikTok has been a hotly debated app ever since the app first kind of blew up during the pandemic. There were tons of concerns around its privacy features and what data it collects on you. The Biden administration has published a TikTok ban starting January 19th of 2025. Hundreds and thousands of companies have found new successes on TikTok, including TikTok Shop. According to an e-marketer report on social commerce, TikTok gained more shoppers than Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest combined in 2023, totaling up to 11.6 million shoppers, many of those being return shoppers. There's really only one thing that could slow it down in 2025, and that is the impending platform ban. We have seen platform changes a ton in the past. Facebook, now Meta, purchased Instagram. Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla, has now purchased Twitter, which is now named X. So a lot of the social media platforms that we have grown used to in our history have gone through a lot of change. So this is really not uncommon to us. The difference here is that it is a political incentive. There is a political difference here. So here are the 5 things brands and creators can do to reduce risk, continue to engage their TikTok audiences, and continue to make money and grow their brand through January 19th of 2025 when we know more about what's going on. So the first thing you need to do is to continue posting great content. If you have built a big following on TikTok, you really don't want to abandon your audience. Like I said, the deadline is months from now. So there is not only a chance that a US company could purchase TikTok, but there is a chance that there will be political changes between now and then. There is a chance that, the ban will change in nature. We don't really know. So there's not really a lot of evidence as to why we need to jump ship yet. And until then, you really want to continue to nurture your audience and continue to give them the good stuff and why they follow you in the first place. There's going to be tons and tons of trends. There's going to be quite a few launch activations from big brands. There's going to be lots of partnership opportunities. And there's going to be lots of holidays between now and then, not to mention back to school, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas, holiday shopping. Those are lots of big e-commerce focused holidays that you don't want to miss out on. So you don't want to go ahead and abandon your audience that might purchase from you during those times. So, number 2, use CTAs, calls to action, and point them to your email list. So this is a very big conversation point amidst content and social media professionals. We call social media sometimes rented land. And what we mean by rented land is that we don't own the platforms. We don't own our audience. We don't have their email address. We don't have their phone number. We can't get in touch with them directly. And so if the algorithm changes, we might not be able to get in touch with our audience as quickly as we used to, which could be an issue. So when platforms undergo inevitable change, just like TikTok is about to, sometimes it makes us a little sweaty because we say, how are we going to capture that audience or their attention again? The way that you do that is with an email list. You could also do this with an SMS list. A lot of companies are not really going into SMS. That's a different conversation. I would love to do a video on that in the future. But for now, I will say, make sure that you are encouraging your followers to give you their email address and join your newsletter. Your email list is an owned property. Get their email address. You can add a link in bio and point them and say, hey, give me your email address and I will send you exclusive content. You can say, DM me your email address and I will send whatever they're asking for to you. A lot of times on TikTok, people will say, don't gatekeep. Let me know, where'd you get your shirt? Where'd you get your mic? Where'd you get this? Where'd you get that? Join my email list and I'll send you my entire list of recommendations. Oh my God, what a great way to not only get people engaged, but you're giving them something that they want. Some of the examples and the CTAs that you can use for this are subscribe to my Substack email newsletter platform for the full story. You can also say something like email subscribers get a special offer, join now to get the deal. And that's for a lot of e-commerce brands. And then finally, if you're more of a creator type, you can say, don't forget me with a TikTok ban, join my email list so you can always hear from me. Types of things like that. So people, you're acknowledging that there's a scarcity and that the type of content that they really come to you for is kind of in danger. You're letting them know that that is a reality. So We can fix that. Just give me your email address. Number 3, do a TikTok video about your other platforms. So this is really good for the brands that have a YouTube presence and then they post shorts either on YouTube Shorts or on TikTok. So a great example of this is podcasters. Podcasts a lot of times will do a visual podcast on YouTube, but they will clip certain shorts and the really juicy pieces of the podcast on TikTok. And not only are they wanting you to engage with their short clippy contents, but they're also wanting you to go and engage with their longer form content. So a lot of people that I personally follow on TikTok, I don't follow their longer form stuff. 1, because I don't really know what they're doing on their longer form content, but 2, they've also never invited me. So sometimes you're not incentivized to go and do something if you're not invited to do so. So don't miss that step of inviting your audience to follow you on long form platforms. Note that there's also every platform is rolling out a vertical short form video feature. LinkedIn has just come out that they are beta testing essentially TikTok for LinkedIn. As a LinkedIn girly, I don't know if I'm excited or dreading it. Only time will tell. So we'll see what comes up with that. But all these different platforms are starting to incorporate the short form video. So you're really going to want to say, hey, if you like my content here, go follow me on YouTube Shorts. Hey, if you like my content here, go follow me on Instagram. If you like my content here, go follow me on LinkedIn, because it might be the same content that you post, but it also might be a little bit different. Number 4 is to track your metrics. So I was working with a few clients when Elon Musk purchased Twitter. And as soon as that happened, I was tracking all my metrics and people started leaving the platform by the hundreds. People were deactivating their accounts in droves. And so Twitter was our largest audience. We had about 9,000 to 10,000 people following us on Twitter. Now, I believe their Twitter following, last time I checked, was somewhere around the 3,000 mark. And so that is really detrimental to see that you can go from a 9,000 person following to a 4,000 person following in a matter of months. Granted, it's been more than a few months since Elon bought Twitter, but I digress. But you don't know that people are leaving in droves if you're not tracking your metrics. So when people were leaving in droves, what did people do? They were looking for the next best thing or the next Twitter. I always say that people turn into social media refugees, and they're saying, where can I find another, in Twitter's case, text-based short form platform? A lot of people went to Substack, which is an email platform, and Substack started rolling out a Twitter-like feature. Many people moved to LinkedIn because it was the other text-based platform. However, it was mainly long form. So people started posting more short form pieces on LinkedIn because they were adapting to what they had. The biggest success in launching a social media platform of all time was Threads. Instagram launched Threads, and all of the people from Twitter immediately just went into their Instagram and started their Threads account. Why? Because it was essentially the same thing as Twitter. Now, has it had the same success that Twitter has had? Absolutely not, but that is, again, a different video. So in order to track your analytics, it makes sense to use it through a aggregator or a third-party tool like Sprout Social or Later.com. My friend Carrie Rigo, she is brilliant, but she, over time, has realized that third-party tools do not count metrics the same way as the native platform themselves. That makes a lot of sense because a lot of the native platforms create native metrics. So they all are going to count a little bit different. So third-party tools a lot of times will create their own metric to account for all of these differences. So what Carrie says is, I prefer to use data from the native platforms. I've done enough data reporting that when comparing native metrics to third-party tools, they're always wildly different. I would rather stick with native tools because I consider them to be closer to the accurate data. So I completely agree with Carrie on that. I still prefer my third-party tools just because they make everything really consistent across different platforms and you can kind of compare apples to apples. But there is a lot of benefit to using native metrics. So here's the 3 metrics you need. 1, track your video views. The apple to apple for this and other content pieces would be impressions. So anytime you see an impression, essentially you're thinking of that as a video view and vice versa. Number 2 is going to be your engagement. So your engagement includes your likes, your comments, and your shares. And third, you're going to follow your total follower count. This is how you determine if your account is growing or declining. This is the metric that I looked at when I saw, oh my gosh, our Twitter account is hemorrhaging followers. The last thing that you need to do to hedge against the TikTok ban is archive your content, archive your analytics, archive your DMs. Make a content repository. Essentially, what you're doing is you're creating a backlog of your content. Now, this takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, but there is a lot of value that this brings to you and your organization. The first thing it does is you have a hub of all of your previous content. So, God forbid, if the platform goes down when you are trying to look at your data, you don't just have to sit back and say, I don't have access to it, I don't know what to do. You can go back and say, okay, well, on May 6th, this LinkedIn post had this many impressions and this many engagements, et cetera, et cetera. And so now you know how to move forward with that data. Another thing that this is really good for is downloading the actual videos and any multimedia that you post. So TikTok, if you download all of those TikToks, you're going to have those. You could repost them to YouTube Shorts. You could repost them elsewhere. But you're going to be able to understand what elements of that video did well because you're going to have all of the analytics associated with it and you're going to have the raw video file itself. Also, a lot of platforms do not maintain your data in perpetuity. So if you have analytics from 10 years ago, you might not be able to have access to those. GA4 has this thing called Google Signals. It's a little bit even high level for me, but they only retain your data for 24 months. So if you're trying to look back at data from 2-3 years ago, you might be out of luck. What I would recommend is create a spreadsheet and have a few elements to start building out your content repository. The first thing you need to add is the date published. The second thing you need to add is the post copy or your caption. The third thing is the creative asset. So what I would do is I would download all of your creative assets. I would add them to a Google Drive or a Dropbox folder and then create a link to that specific piece of content and embed it in this little file. The third thing is a link to the post. So for example, if I was going to create a content repository for LinkedIn, I would go in, click the 3 dots at the top, a little menu on each post, and say copy link to post. And then I would go in and I would put this in this spreadsheet. So that way, anytime I want to go and see the actual live post on LinkedIn, I can click it and it will automatically take me there. So this is really good to see what the post looks like in the native platform. And then finally, you can add any notes. So for example, if you know that this was the highest performing post for the last 6 months, put this is the highest performing post from January of 2024 to June of 2024. That type of information is really going to help you as you navigate what next steps you need to make in your content planning and just developing better content going forward. So those are the 5 things you need to do to save your hide from the TikTok ban. The first thing, continue posting great content. Number 2, use CTAs and point them to your email list, also known as a owned property. Number 3 is do a TikTok video talking about your other platforms. Point to your other platforms and tell people, invite people why they should follow you there. Number 4, track your metrics so you know what's going on the platform. No one else can tell you anything about your data if you are the one tracking your data. You know what I mean? And then 5 is archive your content, create a content repository. Again, so you not only are tracking your metrics, but you have a backlog of what's doing well and what's not doing well. So the reason you should do all these things is because all of these things are great tips to help you build your social media presence and just your online presence overall. They're especially useful in like quote unquote these trying times in social media when platforms are changing and algorithms are getting weird. Doing these things helps you hedge your bets not only against an impending TikTok ban, but these are just really good, healthy practices to do all the time to make sure that your marketing and social media hygiene is just really, really good and top notch. So those are the 5 things you need to do to get ahead of the TikTok ban. I am Raven Wilson. Thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to see what next video I post.